Hey, Archer. Hey, how you doing?
That is awesome. Are you ready, Archer?
Ready. Why don't you have your sticker on, Mr. Speaker?
What sticker? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I haven't had one of those in a long time. Well, good morning, everybody. First, I want to welcome all our special guests today. I think it's great to see you here, and it's great that you get to see the work your parents do, but don't tell them this, but they're actually kind of good at their jobs. Wong, are those your daughters? Oh, my God. So cute. You had one last year with us, I think.
This is her first time.
Oh, very cool. Hey, okay, I digress. Sorry. Later today, the president will sign an executive order to improve accountability at the VA. Under the Obama administration, not nearly enough was done to hold bureaucrats accountable for failing veterans at our Veterans Affairs. Despite promises to clean things up, only a smattering of people were moved out of their jobs. Only a smattering of people were held accountable. Last month, the House passed the VA Accountability Act to make it easier to bring the kind of steady leadership that VA medical centers so desperately need. And last week, the president signed legislation to reduce out-of-pocket costs for veterans and to promote better access to care. These are all very positive steps to deliver the kind of fundamental reform that is needed at the VA. This adds to what has already been a very incredibly active first 100 days. Under the president's leadership, we have cut red tape at record levels. Cutting red tape saves families dollars, it saves businesses jobs. In fact, we have saved families and businesses more than $67 billion just already. Yesterday, the administration put out its principles for pro-growth tax reform. That's the next step toward overhauling our tax code. And we continue to make real progress in our work to repeal and replace Obamacare. As you saw, we posted an amendment to the American Health Care Act yesterday. This amendment was a result of constructive conversations among our members that focused on how we can do more to lower costs for everyone. What this amendment does is it gives states more flexibility and tools to reduce premiums and increase choices. And it does this while maintaining and preserving protections for people with pre-existing conditions. This is the important point. Those protections remain on the books, even as we add new ones. The goal here is to give states greater flexibility, if they want it, to lower premiums. We've not yet made any decisions on a vote, but this is more progress, and we will continue our progress and our work to repeal and replace Obamacare. Now, I'm sure some of you have questions. Are there any young people who actually have any questions? Yeah, Manu, you're not cutting no bar. No, geez, all right. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Mike, you go.
Mr. Speaker, how close are you on health care, and what are your reassurances to moderates who maybe liked the original plan or worried about the new one?
Well, I think we're making very good progress. We're going to go when we have the votes, but that's the decision we'll make when we have it. And something tells you you'll probably be the first to know when that happens. I would argue that this is a bill that a moderate would more likely want to support. Some people were concerned about EHBs. EHBs were taken out of the bill. Essential health benefits were taken out of the earlier draft of the bill. They're now put back in. So they're in the federal law, and a state would have to find a waiver for essential health benefits. So if anything, this puts more federal protections in on pre-existing conditions. Every state's a little different. In Wisconsin, we had a high-risk pool that worked really well, and I think we ought to be given the kind of flexibility to tailor our markets that work for us in Wisconsin, because the Wisconsin healthcare system is different than, say, the New York healthcare system or the Vermont healthcare system. That just makes sense. But even if a state gets a waiver, there are multiple layers of pre-existing condition protections, like continuous coverage. If you have a healthcare problem and you have health insurance, you can't be denied or rated for higher healthcare costs. And if you switch to another plan and you keep your coverage, the same protections apply, even if your state gets a waiver. But the more important point, I think, is why this amendment, I think, is a step in the right direction, is we believe the smarter way to go on getting premiums down and protecting people with pre-existing conditions is have federal and state support for people who are sick. Support that catastrophic illness with greater subsidies so that everybody else doesn't have to bear those costs in their insurance pools. 1% of the people in the individual market drive 23% of the costs. So if we directly support that catastrophic coverage, it's sort of reinsurance on top of insurance, then you're lowering everyone else's prices. You're making it easier for people to afford quality health insurance, and you're guaranteeing that that person who has catastrophic healthcare costs, that person who has a pre-existing condition or gets really sick, gets the coverage that they need. We think it's a really good step in the right direction. We're having very productive conversations with our members, and we feel like we're on the right track, and we'll announce, when we have a vote, when we're going to go.
Is there pressure to vote by the president's 100th day?
We want to go when we're ready to go, and we're having this. This has been a very organic bottom-up process. It takes time to do that. We're doing big things, and you know me. I talked about 200 days because I thought the kind of agenda that we're attempting to put together here, overhauling healthcare, overhauling the tax system, rebuilding our military, securing the border, those take more than just a few months. They take a long time, at least a year, and so that's why we're working on the path to get it right and not constrain it to some artificial deadline. Nancy.
Mr. Speaker, high-risk pools don't have the greatest track record. In Wisconsin, your high-risk pool was great for the people who were on it, but it was still unaffordable for a lot of other people, wasn't it?
No, it was pretty actually darn good, but this will add federal funding to it now. So think of high-risk pools. There were states that had high-risk pools that had reinsurance mechanisms or risk sharing like the Maine plan. None of them had any federal funding to it. None of them had any federal resources. This takes that idea and adds federal resources to it to make sure that it works even better, and HHS will coordinate with those states to make sure that they have good mechanisms in place. So we have seen states, Wyoming had a good one, Utah had a good one, Washington State had a good one, Maine had a good one, we had a good one. They work. And now that we're going to be adding federal funding to it, they'll work even better, and you'll be able to lower prices even more.
So can you reassure people with pre-existing conditions that they won't be worse off under your plan?
People will be better off with pre-existing conditions under our plan. That's the whole goal here, is to make it easier for people. The problem with Obamacare is people get one choice at best in a third of all the counties in America. 5 states, you got one plan to choose from. That's not very good to have just a monopoly giving you health insurance. Our job here is to make sure that people get more choices. And by getting more choices, you can get better quality health insurance and lower prices, and we preserve those protections for people with pre-existing conditions. That's the goal of this bill. That's what this bill achieves. And we think it's going to be a big improvement on the status quo, which is collapsing before us. Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Steny Hoyer and Democrats say that they will.
Uh-oh. So I was just repeating what she was saying, not what you said. Yeah.
Democrats are saying that they will withhold votes for a funding bill.
Yeah, she said something to me about that.
Press forward with a vote this week on Obamacare repeal. What's your reaction to that? And can you guys pass a funding bill with just Republican votes?
I would be shocked that they would want to see a government shutdown, that the Democrats would want to do that. Look, let's just take a step back. The reason this government funding bill is not ready is because Democrats have been dragging their feet. Periodically, they haven't even been being shown up for the negotiations. So the reason we need an extension in the first place is because Democrats are dragging their feet. Even if we get an agreement, let's just say, in 10 minutes, we simply can't process the paperwork that long, and we have a 3-day rule. People need to be able to read the bill. So it inevitably, under any scenario or circumstance, requires a short-term extension, and I'm confident we'll be able to pass a short-term extension. And I'd be kind of shocked that the Democrats would want to create a government shutdown because they have been dragging their feet. Yeah, Casey.
Mr. Speaker, back to healthcare for a moment. With all the changes that you've made that have led to the Freedom Caucus getting on board, should this be an easy yes vote for the moderate members?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Tom MacArthur is a leading moderate in Congress. It's his amendment. So this is.
Seems to have frustrated some of his fellow moderate colleagues.
Well, I don't know if that's the case. I'd say Tom MacArthur, who actually has an entire career working in insurance, understanding the math and the mechanics and actuarial science of insurance, has come up with a very innovative amendment that we think works really well. And it gets to where we all want to go. We want to bring down costs. We want to preserve protections for people with pre-existing conditions. And we want to respect the fact that states, have different issues, different healthcare marketplaces. And we want to give states greater flexibility so that they can get the maximum reduction in policies and premiums, and so that we can get the best possible healthcare system. What we've learned is a cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all healthcare system doesn't work for America. It's a diverse country. Different states have different rules and different systems. We need to respect that, and that's what this MacArthur Amendment does. He's one of the leading moderates. He's a co-chair of the Tuesday group. Good shot, Archer, right? He's one of the leading sorry, it was a good shot. That was pretty cool. He's one of the leading members of the Tuesday group. So I think that this is basically a coalescing thing.
But aren't their seats potentially at risk?
No, I think people's seats are at risk if we don't do what we said we would do. We all campaigned on repealing and replacing this law that is collapsing. The American healthcare system in the individual market is in peril right now. We have a moral obligation to prevent people from getting hurt, to stop damage from being continued. And we promised that we would do this. If you violate your promise, if you commit the sin of hypocrisy in politics, that's the greater risk, I think, to a person's seat. Dude in the back.
On the cost-sharing subsidies, you have said that the administration should be getting those payments. You, in fact, sued the Obama administration for that exact thing. OMB is saying that this is an issue that Congress needs to deal with. You said you don't want to deal with it in the spending bill. What's the future of these? Because it seems like the White House and Republicans are on different pages.
Yeah.
On how that funding will
Well, we're in litigation, so I won't go into the deep details of that, only that it's a difference between the separation of powers. So we're in existing litigation, and the White House, the administration's been making those payments while that's pending, which is still pending. I think the White House has already made comments on this, and I'll just leave it at that.
Once the lawsuit ends,
I won't speculate on where, because I don't know what the outcome of the lawsuit's going to be. Yeah.
thank you.
Oh.
The House Oversight Committee,
I'll go back to you next. Molly just jumped in front of you. And she's,
the House Oversight Committee released documents showing, raising concerns about Michael Flynn. I'm wondering, in his failure to disclose foreign payments, do you believe that he may have broken the law, number one? And number two, are you concerned about the White House's vetting procedures and actually hiring him to this position to begin with?
yeah, I don't know whether he did or did not. That's why we have an investigation. This I see is part of our ongoing investigation over at HIPSI as well. And we'll just find the answer to that question through an investigation. I'm not going to prejudge a conclusion. Yeah.
On the minors' benefits, where do you stand? Should those benefits be extended to health benefits
Yes.
permanently?
Oh, I won't get into that.
Things like Consol Energy should
I do believe that these health benefits should be extended. I'm not going to insert myself into ongoing negotiations that the appropriators are having about the length of that.
Last question.
The tax foundation, their estimates of tax reform and the effect of tax cuts, you guys have cited them on the Republican side pretty often. But one of their assumptions is that there's no crowd-out effect from rising debt as part of that. And so I'm curious as to whether you in the past have said you believe the rising debt, particularly from entitlement programs and spending, will have a drag on economic growth. Can you square that circle?
Yeah, it's all about interest rates, right, Jonathan? So I think under most models, you assume a normalization of interest rates will occur. The question is, do interest rates go above their normal rates, or do they go higher because of debt and deficits crowding out investment? I do believe that we have to have fiscal discipline in addition to economic growth. You know me well. I think that means reforming our entitlement programs. I think passing this healthcare bill, which helps go at lowering the cost of healthcare, is extremely important if you're going to lower fiscal exposure, if you're going to help close the debt. One of the biggest drivers of our debt is the high cost of healthcare and health inflation. So if we can have a patient healthcare system that is restored by reviving the individual market, that's one of the greatest things we can do to bring down high healthcare costs and close the debt and the deficit. So I do believe you have to have comprehensive entitlement reforms along with pro-growth legislation like tax reform to get the best of both worlds, which is getting the debt under control, getting people back to work, and getting faster economic growth that gets us better revenues. That was the last one? Okay, I've got it. It's my turn to ask a question. How many junior reporters do we have here today, including photographers? Okay, why don't we all get a photo, all right? Where do we do it? Over here? Is this where Nancy did it, over here? All right, come on. Weighs about half of you. All right, Archer, you got to give your camera to somebody else to take it. Or do you want it around his neck? You can hang on to it. You can hang on to it. Oh, you want me to hold it? Oh, he's easy. Hey, come on over here, buddy. Come on, you guys. Here, come on. It's been a long time since I felt like this. Somebody make faces, all right? You guys good?
Great job, guys. Thank you. That's awesome. Hey, he's so easy. You haven't even thrown up on me yet. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, 2 hours. I'll see you in 2 hours. I'll see you in 2 hours. It's been a long time since I've held one this small. That's pretty cool. All of ours are. That's awesome. He's easy. He's easy. All right, guys. Oh yeah, let me get my stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to leave my crib notes.